Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Don Marsh. Although people have been celebrating for days and even weeks in some cases, today officially marks Mardi Gras. It's Fat Tuesday. While St. Louisans have gotten pretty good at observing Mardi Gras, or Carnival as some call it, New Orleans has the U.S. Mardi Gras franchise, and it's celebrated with some significant gusto in many parts of the world. But few celebrants know what it's really all about. It's more than about beads and booze. We're taking a closer look. Joining me in studio are Mac Bradley, president of the St. Louis Mardi Gras Foundation, and Moacir Marquini is a native Brazilian and a musician whose band Samba Bom, I hope I pronounced that correctly,
That's right.
It gives a Brazilian sound to various Mardi Gras events. Great to see you guys. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the invite.
Well, let's talk about what's happening today right here in St. Louis. Where are we in this process?
Well, as you said, today is actually Fat Tuesday, which is what Mardi Gras means.
Mm-hmm.
Our big event was on Saturday. I know there are a lot of events around St. Louis today, including on the Central West End. But we do a schedule of about a dozen events between 12th night, which is January 6th, and whenever the Saturday before Fat Tuesday is, which is about 8 weeks this year.
We're pretty good at this celebration, but I don't think we're second only to New Orleans, as some people say, or are we?
Yeah, so we get that question a lot, and our official position is it doesn't really matter to us. Whether we're number 2 or 3 or 4 doesn't really matter so much as whether or not people have had fun, and we've had successful and safe events. So whether we're 2 or 3 or 5 doesn't really matter.
Doesn't make any difference. Moacir, what do you think of the way St. Louis celebrates Mardi Gras?
Well, it's very different than we do celebrate in Brazil. In Brazil, we have like 4.5-day holiday. So we start celebrating on Friday night, and we just end Wednesday at noon after Ash Mass.
Ash Wednesday.
Ash Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah. Well, how do you celebrate?
I make money, actually. I play a lot of gigs, like I'm a full-time musician, and I lead another band in Chicago called Chicago Samba, so I go back and forth the two cities. And I used to go to Brazil a lot before, I've been living over here for 34 years. I used to go to Brazil a lot, and I parade on those big samba schools in Rio and São Paulo. I went to different sites of Brazil, like different parts of Brazil, only to celebrate Mardi Gras or Carnival. We call Carnival.
Yeah. How in Brazil do they celebrate that is different, perhaps, from the way we observe it here?
Oh, it's different from anywhere in the world because it's a big celebration there, and we take that serious, like celebrating Carnival. They say Carnival in Brazil is just like 4th of July and the Super Bowl combined. It's a huge party, probably the biggest party on the earth. As you see those parades in Rio, I was watching yesterday on the television. It was beautiful to see there, and I love seeing that. It's a big part of the culture where we mix all the elements from the Indians, from the contribution from the Africans and from the Europeans, and we blend everything together through a parade. That's a way to put that for me.
I lived in Germany for a number of years, and I think the Germans would say they celebrate it better than anybody there. They call it Fasching there, yeah. And it's a big party. It's the same thing. Have we taken elements from places other than New Orleans for our celebration?
I think a lot of these celebrations are linked culturally and in a lot of different ways. I mean, the term Mardi Gras goes back to the Middle Ages. They celebrated it in France, particularly in Paris, and where they had all sorts of, I guess, what we would call today parades and things like that. The Romans had something they called the Wolf Festival, which sort of fits in the same part of the calendar that later became Mardi Gras or Carnival. When the French explorer Iberville probably had what is the first Mardi Gras celebration in the Western Hemisphere, he set up a little encampment in 1699 on the east bank of the Mississippi near where New Orleans is today, and made note of the fact that Mardi Gras was going on in Paris at the time, so he called it Point du Mardi Gras. I guess they had a little celebration that night. I doubt he had enough people for a parade. But yeah, I mean, we take the parade element of it here certainly comes from the tradition in Rio and New Orleans.
I'm not sure that everybody realizes that there is a very strong religious connection to this. I mean, obviously, tomorrow is Ash Wednesday, and that's part of it.
Right, and it fits in between, so January 6th or Epiphany or King's Day, all the same different terms for the same day. January 6th, the day the Magi got to Bethlehem in the Bible. And that fits into the Christian calendar in between the Christmas season and Lent.
Moacir, how much is in Brazil, going back now to 34 years ago when you were there and beyond, how much does religion play a part in the Brazilian observance?
Oh, it's very important. Brazil is a very Catholic country, and at some time in the past, like a couple of years ago, maybe a couple of decades ago, the parties would extend Lent, and go like a month, like in March, April sometimes. So that the Catholics, like the priests and the bishops, like this has to change. So they have to make an agreement with the groups, with the cities, with whoever was doing the parties, and stop them. So listen, Carnival has to stop on Ash Wednesday. So let's do like this. There's another French celebration called Micareta. Familiar with Micareta or Micaré? Micaré. It's a carnival like in June or July. So they start doing a small carnival. There were no parades over there, but there was just the clubs and a thing that's called trio elétrico, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with those trio elétricos. There are like 16-wheel truck that speakers all over the truck, and it's on top is a stage. So a band goes on top of that with lights and everything. It's a whole stage. So they move very slow, and everybody go dancing after or behind that trio elétrico. So they make some deals with that. So they start having micaretas in June and July, so they could continue celebrating Carnival there.
Well, here's what I'm hearing with what you're saying, is that Mardi Gras, if you will, it is a time when you blow off steam before Lent, when you're giving up a lot of the things that you wouldn't normally have. You're not going to drink and party quite so much. But you guys in Brazil go right back at it when after Easter, right?
Yes, pretty much that. That's pretty much what it is.
I want to play. You've written some music that we have here, and I'd like you to explain what this is all about, because this very much has a Brazilian Mardi Gras or Carnival sound to me. Tell us about Batucada Chicago. I don't know how Chicago got in there, but how did this particular number come to be?
Because I did this CD with another musician from Chicago, and we were rehearsing a lot with my group in Chicago Samba. His name is Marcos Oliveira, and we composed this. He played together with me. I composed the music, and he played together. This is the percussion session that goes into those Carnival parades in Brazil. And in Brazil, we don't even mention Fat Tuesday. Fat Tuesday pretty much doesn't exist in Brazil. We say Carnival. That's the whole thing is Carnival. So anyway, Marcos and I played this CD. Only two guys played this CD, play this track. It's called Batucada Chicago. So this very African root. They're the contribution from the Africans into our music in Brazil. That's our percussion, strictly percussion. And
we'll play it in just 1 second, but it sounds to me like the music I hear in the videos that I've seen of Carnival in Brazil. That this is the kind of the sound of this particular celebration. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
let's give it a listen.
Sure.
right? That is Batucada Chicago,
Yes.
composed by our guest here, Moacir Markini. That sounds like it's a pretty good party number, doesn't it to you, Mac?
I want to go have a parade just listening to that.
Yeah. What about our parade? How did that work out this year?
We were very happy this year. It was, by our standards, it was a positively tropical 45 degrees on parade day. I was listening to what you said about doing this in July and planning and producing a number of outdoor events in St. Louis in February or early March is always a challenge. July sounds pretty sweet to me.
How did our celebration evolve?
So that's another question we get a lot, and most people think that it has something to do with St. Louis's French heritage or something like that, but it doesn't have anything to do with it. In the bleak winter of 1980, there were 5 friends who were bored, and it was a terrible winter, and they decided they want to have a party. And as they were planning it, somebody said, well, we probably ought to have a theme for this. And they said, well, I think Mardi Gras is coming up. Let's make it a Mardi Gras party. And one of them was a gentleman named Hilary Clements, who later on, for many years, had a bar and a restaurant in Soulard called Hilary's on Russell Boulevard. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a bar yet. He had just bought the building, but that building was where the first Mardi Gras party was in St. Louis, and at the end of the night, they all decided to march up the street to McGurk's, where the legend has it they got thrown out for being too loud. So that was the first Mardi Gras parade, was 2.5 blocks from what was Hilary's up to McGurk's. One of those gentlemen, so that was 1980, one of those gentlemen is named Bob Brinkman, and Bob is 84 years old and is still with us. And we asked him to be the Grand Marshal of our parade this year because this was our 40th anniversary year, and he was gracious enough to do it. Bob is quite a character.
Well, you had some female representation this year too, didn't you?
Absolutely. So for the last several years, we've had a Rex. In New Orleans, of course, they have a Rex, a king of Mardi Gras, and so this year, Missy Kelly, who's the CEO of Downtown STL, was gracious enough to agree to be our first Regina of Mardi Gras this year.
And it was more orderly than it has been sometimes in the past this year, which is maybe the weather had something to do with that.
I don't know that the weather. It's funny. We had a lot of people on Saturday. Everybody asks us for crowd estimates. We're not a turnstile event, and we don't sell tickets. So I always say our official crowd estimate is a lot. We're going to have a lot of people. But you can eyeball the crowd and get a good sense of this year versus others. And we had a pretty big crowd on Saturday, but very few problems. And there are a number of reasons for that. Obviously, we have a great relationship with the city and the St. Louis police. But I also think many years of, this is the way we do it, and here are the things you're supposed to do and not do in Soulard. And one of our big messages is you ought to treat the neighborhood like it is your own. It's a neighborhood. People live here all the time. Treat it that way. And I think that message sinks in over time.
And you've learned over the years, going back, you learn something every year that you can perhaps implement the following year, correct?
Oh, no question. You always try to make it a little bit better, learn a little bit more, a little bit better way to do this or that. And there's something that happens every year that you can learn from.
Sure. I want to go back to your days in Brazil. Are the crowds during Carnival, do they generally behave themselves? Do people get into trouble?
They get into trouble. There's a lot of protests too, like people don't use the urinals, those bunks. They always pee in the streets and stuff like this. So there's a lot of complaints about that. But overall, like, everybody's there to celebrate, to have a good time and whatever, because there's many ways of celebrating Carnival in Brazil, different ways, like a street, ballroom. Even if you go to the ocean, relax, there are going to be ways to celebrate Carnival as well.
What about costumes?
Costumes is very free. Like, I don't even know how to put that, but when you see like those big parades, you see like every samba school, there are 14 like main samba schools in Rio, and 14 in São Paulo as well. And every one of them has a different theme. And all those themes, they have like 42, 45 different sessions, and they have different costumes for those. Those for the parades. Now, if you're going to go out and celebrate yourself, that's very free. It's very hot now. It's our summertime.
Yeah.
And, people like wear like the minimal clothes as possible. That's, just tennis shoes and whatever.
Do you have a king, a carnival king?
We do have a king, they call Hey Momo. Hey Momo, it's like the king Momo. There's always a chubby guy.
Chubby?
Very, very happy, and he represents like the happiness of Carnival. That's probably his tied with Fat Tuesday, being like a really happy and like chubby person.
Why is it called Fat Tuesday?
Well, I think because it's at the end of this season where you're supposed to eat and drink as much as you want, right? And then everybody's got to stop it the next day. So
It's also called Shrove Tuesday.
yes,
What is the derivation of that?
I don't know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Costumes this year, how would you characterize them in St. Louis?
We had a great parade this year. We have a theme for the parade every year. This year, of course, was our 40th anniversary. And in New Orleans, they have these crews come together to produce a parade, the whole parade. Here in St. Louis, the Mardi Gras organization produces the parade. The crews produce the individual entries, the floats themselves in the parade, which in and of itself is a huge undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
They can spend $10,000 and many months designing and building a float. So the parade theme this year being 40 years, officially it was 40 years of magic, music, and memories. That was our theme. So there's a lot of creativity that the crews get into. They were well festooned on Saturday, both the floats and the people. They really brought out their A game this weekend.
Tell us a little bit about the foundation and how it works. I mean, I'm guessing you're probably already thinking about next year.
Absolutely, yeah. So the Mardi Gras Foundation was created in 2002, and one of the main reasons for that was Soulard has, as of now, has hosted this party for 40 years, and we wanted to find a way to give something back, something tangible back to the community every year. So we created the foundation, and then the Mayor's Ball, which is a black tie gala that happens the evening before Grand Parade. So it was this last Friday night that the first Mayor Slay and now Mayor Cruson was gracious enough to host for us at City Hall. The proceeds from the Mayor's Ball go to a Soulard Community Grants program every year. We also take part of that and do beautification around City Hall itself, but the bulk of the funds raised at the ball goes to Soulard. And we have a sister organization called Mardi Gras Inc. The two organizations will begin planning pretty much right away. It's like you said before. First, you have to learn from what we just experienced, right? Anybody who does events or anything, you gotta do a download on it before while it's all fresh in your mind. And then as soon as that's over, we'll begin planning right away for 41.
How are the residents in Soulard taking all of this? Have they gotten used to this now after 40 years?
I think so. I mean, there are always going to be some folks love it and some folks don't, right? But I think overall, we have done particularly over the last 20 years that the Mardi Gras Inc. and Foundation organizations have existed. We've done a pretty good job of building out a whole schedule of events. It's not all just the big parade on Saturday. There's a dozen different events. Some of them are family-oriented and whatnot. And from an operational perspective, figuring out what does the neighborhood care about and how can we address those issues in a systematic way so everybody has fun, but it's safe and it's good for the city.
Only a few seconds left. Noah, sir, you're performing today, I understand. Is that correct?
Yes,
Where?
At Barcelona, in Clayton, Barcelona Tapas. We always doing some performance over there, like related to football or related to soccer. And it's our home kind of over here. Like there's a few clubs that we always performing, like and open the doors for Brazilian culture, and we always have a good time. We start at 8 p.m. and we play all the way to 11, and we're going to be playing Brazilian Mardi Gras music.
All right, something to look forward to. Something akin to what we heard a little bit earlier on the program.
Yes, we're going to do that.
Well, have a great performance tonight, and thank you for being with us and telling us about Carnival in Brazil.
Thank you for inviting me.
And Max, thank you also for being with us. I know it's been a busy time for you, but we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That's Mac Bradley with the St. Louis Mardi Gras Foundation. He's president of it. And Moacir Marchini is a Brazilian-born musician who is sharing his memories. Thank you all so much for being with us. Have a great Mardi Gras. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com. Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. choosewood.com.